Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm really happy to have a chance to chat.
We're doing this so that we have like someone we can look up to, like younger children, to have someone to look up to and like kind of know, oh, this is where I can get to. This is what I can do in the future. So this is why I'm doing this.
Honored and touched, but I do think that you're onto something. I think it's very important that people see alternative careers and ways that they may not already be exposed to in terms of what you could do, especially with a science degree, right? But yes, in general. The governor has an interesting comment, which is if you can't see it, you can't be it. So the chance to just shed some light on the different kinds of careers is great. Yeah.
So I would like to start with like how you like got into doing science.
Got into doing science. So I was in high school and thought that I should get a summer job, and I was going to high school in Maryland, near Washington D.C. And so my dad asked me like, what do you like to do? What kind of things do you like to study in school? And I said I kind of like science, and I was just very privileged that he was able to introduce me to some folks at the National Institutes of Health who were able to take me into their laboratories as a high school student. I did compete and eventually get selected for a high school summer internship program at the NIH through the American Heart Association. But that was sort of a long and winding road. But I did, probably around age 16, decide that I did like science, and I thought I'd like to try my hand at it in the summer. And honestly, I think once you start to do science and see what it actually can be, for me, it was just very clear that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So how did you decide like whether you wanted to do academia or you wanted to go like industry?
I had always thought I really wanted to do academia. I really love my days in the laboratory. I love having experiments that come up with some data, and then you get to decide what it means and decide on some experiments that you'd like to do next. So I really always thought that was what I would spend my life doing. But the truth is I had my daughter while I was a postdoctoral fellow, and at that point realized that my days in the lab, as great as they were so unpredictable and so long and so unrelentingly disappointing, right? Because a lot of times when you're doing research, you just don't get the results you think you're gonna. That I started looking for other things to do with my degree, and I really just fell into teaching at that point. So I had, since I was 16 to the time I was, how old was I when I had my daughter? I don't know, 26 maybe? No, I mean, that can't be right. 30? I don't even remember how old I was when I had my daughter, 96, 26, yeah, 30 years old. So at that point, that was when I decided I wanted to do something else. So, it was as surprising to me as anybody that that's where I would land. Yeah.
Did you want to go back to it later on in your life?
So I did. It's a good question. I did miss the laboratory, and I was fortunate to have kept up good connections and friendships with the faculty at Harvard Medical School, where I had been for so long, because I did my graduate work and my postdoctoral work there. So I had been there for almost 10 years. And and so in the summers during my breaks from teaching, I did join some research labs as a visiting scientist and get to sort of do some science as a hobby almost, and just continue to learn, continue to explore new ideas and get new techniques, experience with those. So that was really fun. I spent a handful of years in Dr. Fred Winston's lab doing yeast genetics. He was very gracious to let me come back year after year and just work in the summers as a research visiting scientist. But eventually the thing that stopped that was the beginning of my nonprofit, and that just took my summers. All of a sudden I had way too many jobs. I could not do them all. So I haven't been a visiting scientist in Fred's lab for about a decade at this point. But I was at Wellesley probably from 1996 to 2003, something like that, or 97 to 2003. And then in 2003 went to MIT, and they were starting a new undergraduate major in biological engineering, which is an engineering discipline. I'm not an engineer, I'm a scientist, but they were looking for laboratory content to develop, and I had done a lot of that at Wellesley. And so I got to join the faculty as they were starting their new undergraduate major, which eventually became Course 20. At MIT, all things that are valued have numbers, and the number for biological engineering is Course 20. It's the major, and yeah, it was wonderful. I was there at a really golden time of learning and advancement in the field. It was a real joy. Yeah, and I'm still I'm currently senior lecturer there, which is has few obligations for teaching, but I do still feel very connected to the faculty and the work that they do there. So,
like, is that kind of how you got, like, what you learned, what you started at MIT is kind of similar to what you're like trying to do at BioBuilder?
Completely, exactly right. So at MIT, I really saw for the first time just how powerful it is to teach and to learn by building things made from biology, right? So I had always learned biology as something that exists in the beautiful world, and we could discover things about it, and I love discovery science. I think it's a great way to spend your day, and it's a good thing to add to the world, right? Is to discover how it works and how it got here and all that. But in teaching, there is a chance to really engage people with the building of it. Like, how do you use what you know to solve a challenge? And that's what engineering is that bridge between science and society's needs, is what engineers do. And I had never thought about engineering before. Very fortunate to have been at MIT at a time when amazing engineers existed there, and could teach me. And then I thought, well, if this is so cool for me to do and learn, it's got to be great for other people too. And if I'm at MIT and I can teach 50 students a year at most, right, then I have 50 students. But if I can teach 50 teachers and then they all go off and teach 100 students, it just amplifies the work tremendously. So that's where BioBuilder started, was to take the things we were doing at MIT and really just try to make them something that could be done in a wide variety of settings by teachers and students.
So the teachers part, like teaching teachers part of the BioBuilder came first?
Yes, it did. That was where we started. Yeah, I started working with teachers through a National Science Foundation program called RETs, Research Experiences for Teachers, and worked with some great teachers. And the first thing they told me was that they are very busy in their classrooms and they don't have a lot of extra time for doing extra stuff. So it really sort of helped us mold BioBuilder so that it was something that they could do in their existing framework in their teaching, as opposed to an add-on, right? Because there's only so much you can keep piling on, right? So working with teachers was where we started. And
so are they like all high school teachers or college?
Mostly high school teachers, but we did have, at our first professional development workshop, we had some college faculty as well, and we have continued to work with college faculty. And it's interesting because BioBuilder now is a decade old. We're, a 10-year-old nonprofit, and some of those teachers that we taught in the very first year or in the second year of our existence are still incredibly powerful BioBuilder teachers. So there's a gal at Olin College of Engineering, Jeannie Wong, who came by, and she's great, and she brings bioengineering to Olin. And then this month's podcast is with Dave Westenberg out of Missouri, Science and Technology, University of Science and Technology, and he's been a BioBuilder from the get-go as well, and a great leader in it, and he teaches it at the university level. So I think if you put it in a place where people can see its value and know that they can adapt it so that they can meet their own needs for their teaching. I think that's been, it just helps with grassroots growth and just happiness among the people who are doing this, because it's a good fit because they've made it a good fit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You started with high school teachers. Like, do you hope to bring in synthetic biology into high school classrooms? Because that is not a really common class.
Yeah. So I will tell you that my goal and the goal of our organization is to bring it into every high school in America, all 25,000 of them. Those are the only public high schools, and then there's 11,000 private and religious high schools. So our goal is to have it in every single school in America, because honestly, what school shouldn't do this?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Show me a school that doesn't have a need for understanding modern biotechnology and its place in the world, and showing students that they have a place in it. I think that's one of the powerful takeaways from BioBuilder, is that students feel like there's a place for them in it. You're doing amazing projects here after being here for 2 weeks. So imagine what it would be if it's a full semester course, or if it's multiple courses at your school, or if it's an after school club where you can spend 6 months on it. The sky's the limit. You guys are so ambitious. It's really just a matter of framing it in a way that lets you guys make good on all your goals. I came to realize later in this work with BioBuilder that it's ambitious and it's important to change the way we teach and learn about biology in terms of classroom learning, but it is equally important to make sure that students who want a good job in this field are prepared with the skills that they need to get those kinds of jobs, because we need trained and skilled people in this field, and the field is growing so fast. So we have more and more programs aimed at workforce readiness and making sure that students, if they want a job in this, can go and find a job, and that they are qualified and ready and strong candidates. Just like we want students, after they've done BioBuilder experiences, to be strong candidates for the colleges of their dreams, I'd like them to be strong candidates for the jobs of their dreams as well. So that is absolutely a complementary mission that we are working really hard to try to get to make a reality.
Was there something that happened or a point that led you to start this?
BioBuilder started I certainly didn't know what I was getting into. That's sort of the story of my life, right? But I was part of a National Science Foundation grant, and it was a very big grant, and halfway through, they just wanted to know how we were going to continue the work once they stopped funding us. And so I went to my colleagues at MIT and said, how do you build capacity in the work you're doing? And the venture mentoring service there said, well, you start an organization, and there are different kinds of organizations, and what kind of organization do you want to run, and what do you want it to do? So we spent a lot of time thinking about how do you structure basically a company, because running a nonprofit is running a company. It's just got a different investment structure. The nonprofit model seemed to fit most of the things that I wanted to accomplish, but I did not really have any idea what I was getting into. But I like to learn, and so here we are 10 years later, very successful. I think we are poised to scale in a really fast and really great way right now. Certainly these last couple of years with COVID, the importance of biology in everybody's life could not be more clear, and the role for biotechnology and synthetic biology in addressing the challenges we face, it's front and center. So, just as when people, when we sent, manned mission to the moon, it sort of led people to say, I want to be part of the space program, I want to do science, I want to do math, I want to do physics. I really think that this period with biology impacting our lives so dramatically, I really think it's going to lead a lot of people to think, I want to be part of that team of solution makers to make it better, to make the world better in facing biology. Use biology to make the world better. Yeah.
I feel like the target audience of BioBuilder is really meaningful. It's not just classes and summer classes, taking students in and teaching them. It's actually about spreading biology to everyone
Yes.
who's interested.
I think that's
Even
exactly
those
right.
who have like no knowledge about it.
Yes, that's why we're openly accessible. I mean, all of our content is online, right? I think you get additional, connection to it and different experience when you are able to come here and do an in-person, especially a long program like yours. But, we want to make sure that this is not hidden behind some, gate where people are worried about it or wondering what you do with it, what we do with it. It's all online. We really just want anybody who's interested in this to have access to good learning materials, and good teaching materials. So, it's led us in a lot of really wonderful directions, that's for sure. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much my question.
Oh,
Just
good.
One last question.
Yes.
Did you have a mentor did you have someone you looked up to when you were younger?
Oh my gosh.
What is one suggestion that you would?
Oh, yeah. I have had many mentors. I've been very fortunate. And one that I'd like to just give a shout out to is my very first mentor at the National Institutes of Health, who took me into his lab when I was 16 years old. I remember he had me make a dye for a loading dye, like you've used in the gels, and it was blue, and I was making it from a powder, so I scooped it into the weight boat and put it into some water, and I took the spatula that I had used and I put it into this big paint thing that they had in the sink for all the dirty glassware, and I threw it in, and there must have been tiny grains left on it, and the whole thing turned blue. And then he came by and he said, "Did you turn my bucket blue?" And I was like, "I didn't think so," because the grains themselves were brown. And I was like, "I don't think I did that." He goes, "No, I think you did. Think about it." And I did. And then I went in and I went, "I'm so sorry." He goes, "I'm not upset at all. It doesn't do anybody any harm, but I'm glad you figured out that you did that." So he was just a wonderful mentor, made me feel like, it was okay to make mistakes and that they were all learning opportunities. His name's Alan Peterkovsky. He is just an incredible person, still at the NIH. In his 90s doing intramural research, and he's an amazing person, and so fortunate to have been connected to him so early. So he's a great mentor, for sure. And it's a very important thing. I think the piece that has helped me is to stay connected to people. I do like to, I should say that in the other way. Some people feel like, oh, if I haven't reached out to this person in a long time, it'll be weird if I email them or something like that. I have never felt that way when somebody out of the blue emails me. So if I'm thinking about somebody or I see something that I think a person would like to read, or the person crossed my mind because of something funny or something that happened, I email people a lot. I stay connected with them on LinkedIn, and so I think maintaining professional connections over time is really helpful, because you never know how your career is going to go and the kind of mentoring that you will need at different times. Right now, growing a nonprofit, I need all kinds of different input than I had needed when I was teaching at MIT, and different input than when I was a PhD student at Harvard, right? So keeping those connections over time has really helped me, and I learn from them still. That's a long answer to your good question.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice. It's really lovely.